Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays with Chris King. I'm Jim Williams, and the madness is about to begin. Chris, I know that you've been breaking down the West bracket, but there's all kinds of fun stuff going on here, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But any observations from yesterday that you want to share?
It was a little disappointing to see Wyoming lose. I mean, the big thing that bothered me the most was right before the half when Jeff Linder got called for a technical for standing near half court when we've seen people do that all season long.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like they were intent on pushing a Big Ten team through with the way the officiating was. I mean, Wyoming shot themselves in the foot turning the ball over so many times, but
Right.
I think that technical really sucked the life out of Wyoming right before the half.
Yeah.
And then that between that and Maldonado's turnovers and everything else, they were in trouble. On the plus side, at least, Texas Southern, we talked about how Johnny Jones's team had turned it around after starting 0-7,
Mm-hmm.
and they took care of business. I feel bad that that a team that plays in a smaller conference like the SWAC that gets an automatic bid, then still has to fight to get into the actual field by having to play in a play-in game.
Mm-hmm.
To me, play-in games should be for teams that are at larges. If you've earned the right to get into the tournament, then you've earned the right to be in the tournament.
Right.
Um,
You shouldn't have
I
to
personally
play.
think at-large teams should be the ones that play in these games, as opposed to just because you're from a small conference doesn't mean that you should be automatically damned to have to play somebody else
Mm-hmm.
to get the right to play in the actual 64-team field.
Absolutely. All right, look, we got a whole bunch of promotions to get to. So let's get them first, and then we'll get to our information for those of you who are getting ready to fill out your brackets. And let's start with our buddies at BetMGM. Now, this is the first of two BetMGM deals that we have for you. Now, BetMGM is going to give new customers a risk-free bet on your first sports wager up to $1,000. Now, this is good for only new players that you are eligible for this bonus, and it must be claimed within 7 days after you sign up. Now, here's the deal. Very simple. Once you create an account and make your first deposit, place any real money on a sports bet between $10 and $1,000, and BetMGM will match it for you. Okay, so that gives you a really good opportunity to test out the BetMGM app and to do it in a way that is fun for all and helps you uh, maybe double your money. Who knows? Let's see. Also, remember that you must be 21 years of age to participate. And as we always say here at Winners and Whiners, and now at Max Sports Network, that most important thing is you bet responsibly. Okay. Now, we also have a free thing we're giving away, a couple of free things. First of all, our expert team of handicappers at Winners and Whiners are offering a sports betting guide to the NCAA Tournament featuring insightful, helpful ways to avoid traps. Meanwhile, at the same time, they're going to find you some value plays and, most importantly, help you make the right bet. So sign up today and get it directly in your inbox. In your inbox the moment it's published, 100% free. Meanwhile, don't forget we also have. There's more. Win up to $1,000. So it can be $2,000 in prizes. You can win up to $1,000 in our bracket contest. And the best way to do that for the BetMGM for the bracket contest is to hit our show box below. And that's where you're going to find all the information on everything we have here with regard to our promotions with BetMGM, with Winners and Whiners, with Max Wagers, with picks and parlays, and all the information is in the show box below. So please take time to check it out, and we'll be back with some more promotions coming up in the not too distant future. But first, let's go to the tournament.
First, Jim, let's look at Michael saying, good job saying last week saying the MLB would be back within 48 hours. Michael says you're in the know.
Well, if you had the under on that, you would have gotten it, Michael. I was about 26 hours, but yeah, okay. It was
Now,
fun.
and Ryan, aren't you glad you didn't play that Sharks Kings parlay you were talking about yesterday? I told you to stay away from it. The Sharks, you're right, they blew it in overtime. The Kings didn't even get on the scoreboard. So hopefully, I know it's always nice to chase those big numbers, the big plus
Mm-hmm.
numbers that come up, but they don't always pan out. Matthew had a good time at the Preds game last night. He asked us if we thought they could win. And I said once Casey DeSmith was announced as the goaltender, I gave him a much better shot in that one. And Nashville did beat Pittsburgh at home. Glad he had a good time at the game. And Sly's Jets beat the Knights. Everybody said, can you trust Vegas? And I said, sure, you can trust them. Would I? No. And it turned out that they were absolutely brutal again as Vegas got beat 7-3 by the Winnipeg Jets. Moving on, this is an NIT game because, as you know, there's only 2 games in the first 4 tonight. One of them we'll get to next. But this is SMU taking on Nicholls State. I really thought SMU was going to get into the field. I guess that semifinal loss to Memphis is what knocked them out. But Tim Jankovic, he's done a good job with the Mustangs. They're 16-0 at home. Nicholls State, not a team that anybody really pays attention to because they're a small conference team that nobody is overly familiar with. They're a good offensive team, but they run a lot, which always helps. They're 34th in field goal percentage. They're 20th in 2-point shooting. They knock down better than 8 threes a night, but they're horrible at the free throw line. 63.1%. That means there's only 4 teams in the country worse than them when it comes to knocking down free throws. They have to deal with an SMU team that's pretty good on the defensive end of the floor, only giving up 67.2 points a game and holding teams to 39.8% shooting, including 44.6% from 2, 30.3% from 3. Meanwhile, SMU has the edge on the other end of the floor as well. They're 91st in scoring offense against the Colonials, 244th in scoring defense. Nicholls State 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 overall, 1-4 in their last 5 against teams with a winning record. SMU 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 on Wednesday. I know that the line's not pretty. We saw Texas A&M gas out for much of the first half yesterday before rallying to beat Alcorn State. But it's hard to argue when you're 16-0 at home and your opponent is 7-7 on the road. And SMU doesn't have the problem that Texas A&M did of playing 5 games in what would be, 6 days, because they played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then they were off Monday, and they played Tuesday. SMU had played Saturday when they lost, but they had a few days off before that. I think the Mustangs should have run away with it and leave the Colonels in the dust.
Well, we talked about SMU building a program down there that has been consistently good. And we're not just talking about, the basketball team, but the football team. And overall, they've been able to come back from the death penalty in pretty good shape. So good on the Mustangs. I like that number of 17-0 at home, which is definitely a good thing to have. And
and you have to figure that means they also beat Houston at home. They beat Memphis at home. They beat Dayton. They beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt played well down the stretch. They beat Belmont yesterday. I thought Belmont was going to play better than that. They played well for the first half, then they kind of fell off. But kudos to the Commodores. Jerry Stackhouse has done a good job with that team.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go now to a play-in game. And I know they like to call it the first 4, but the fact of the matter is you're first in, you're first out if you don't win. So Wright State, who we have been on most of the year, taking on Bryant.
And I like Bryant. Don't get me wrong. I picked them to beat Wagner in the NEC title game. I'm just concerned about what Bryant's going to do here. I mean, it obviously got ugly at the end of that game where they had to basically threaten to empty out the crowd which made no sense. You were up by 30 points. Why was your crowd trying to start a fight? Right. But Bryant, they're very good offensively. They're 32nd in scoring offense at 77.9. But if you look at the rest of their peripherals, they're not all that great. They are 209th in field goal percentage at 43.7%. They are 312th in 3-point shooting at 30.8. And they're decent at the free throw line, but they're not great. Wright State, they're 60th in scoring offense at 75.5. They're 51st in field goal percentage at 46.5%. They shoot 53% inside the arc. They struggle from the perimeter, but they knock down free throws. 20th in the country at 76.8%. And one thing that you can't overlook here too, Jim, Wright State obviously being a school in Ohio, you know that Wright State fans are going to travel well for this. much like Indiana fans traveled to Dayton yesterday for that game against Wyoming. Something you can't overlook in a game where, it's win or go home on a neutral floor. It's not necessarily all that neutral when Wright State's not that far away from the Dayton Arena.
No, and it's not like these tickets are tough to get for the first round in these games. And Dayton has hosted all these games, and they're used to it. And so yeah, it's you're going to have definitely you're going to have a crowd that's going to be very pro Wright State, and that doesn't hurt. That doesn't, Bryant's not going to have the kind of crowd.
What Wright State? It's like what, 10 minutes? Maybe from the Dayton campus.
I was going to say 15 if you count traffic, but yeah, it's not far. It's right. No pun intended. It's right down the road. But yeah, definitely a good one, to be sure. It's a simple trip.
And of course, the other play-in game tonight is Notre Dame and Rutgers. And I know everybody's really excited to see both these teams in the tournament. The issue, Notre Dame is only 7 deep, and you have to wonder, is that going to impact them here? Rutgers, they go a little deeper, but can they get somebody other than Ron Harper to step up consistently? And that's going to be a big question for the Scarlet Knights. It's going to be an interesting game. I know the total actually moved up. It was 132. They bumped it all the way up to 134, but I'm not expecting a offensive fireworks in that one.
These the one time we picked Notre. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say these are two teams that you and I weren't that keen on to get in the tournament to begin with. So
right. I mean, the one time we picked Notre Dame, they lost to Florida State down there in Tallahassee. We all know how Florida State failed on the home stretch.
Right.
And then Notre Dame lost in their first game in the ACC tournament, losing to Virginia Tech. I think the one thing that pushed them in over somebody else is the fact that Virginia Tech won the tournament.
They won the tournament, so figure like, oh well, it couldn't be that bad. They got that, but no. It was,
and the couple times the couple times we talked about Rutgers, we went against them back in December, and that's when Ron Harper hit that 3 to beat Purdue at the buzzer.
Right, he went off.
But they didn't score much down the stretch. You look at their numbers in their last 5, they scored 62 against Michigan, 61 against Wisconsin, 66 against Indiana, 59 against Penn State. And the only reason they scored 74 in their last game was because it came against Iowa, and Iowa likes to play track meets.
That's true. And they usually
win. You're not looking at teams that are going to run. Both teams are subpar in tempo. Rutgers is 290th. Notre Dame is 251st. So I look for that one to be a grinded out kind of game. It's probably going to go right down to the wire. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. I don't foresee either one of these teams going any further.
Yeah, going deep into the tournament.
Because you have to figure they'll end up playing Alabama, and if there's a team that's the antithesis of those two teams, it's Alabama, because Alabama will run all day long
and score points.
This is true.
There's that too. We're going to come on at 2:00 tomorrow. Tomorrow, is there any of the first games there that as we get into the tournament, any of the early games that might start before we get a chance to chat about them that piques your interest?
Well, obviously, Colorado State is going to pique my interest because A, I don't believe Michigan belongs in the field. Mm-hmm. B, we had the whole travel fiasco with Colorado State,
right?
Where I had to deal with a guy on Twitter who said that he hoped that Colorado State wouldn't get an itinerary so they couldn't travel and would have to withdraw from the tournament. And my response to that was, I hope that the entire Michigan fan base doesn't have that mentality, which I likened back to the original Karate Kid, where you remember the sweep the leg. That's what I said. I said that I hope that they don't have this sweep the leg mentality, because let's face it. Sure, I don't believe Michigan belongs in the tournament. I'm not going to change my mindset on that. They're here. That's great for them. But I'm interested to see how Michigan responds, how Colorado State responds. It's going to be an interesting game for sure. The other one that I'm looking at, Memphis and Boise State tip at 145. That's going to be an interesting clash because the winner is probably going to face Gonzaga because I don't think anybody's giving, myself included, is giving Georgia State a shot, especially playing in Portland, which is basically the backyard of Spokane when you get right down to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one that'll tip off before we come on will be the clash. I know Tim Earl is big on this one. South Dakota State, the 13th seed. You got to watch out for the Jackrabbits because, like we said, they were the best three-point shooting team in the country, and it wasn't even close. Taking on Providence. Ed Cooley's team, they had a lot of success. They won the Big East regular season crown, but are they overseeded as a 4? And will they? You have to keep an eye, watch for the upset watch there, because if South Dakota State is knocking down shots from the outside, they're almost impossible to stop. And you look at the Jackrabbits, it's not a one-man team by any stretch of the imagination. You've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 guys that have hit at least 33s on the year, led by Baylor Shireman, who hit 75 and shot 46.6% from beyond the arc, the 16th best mark in the country. You've got Charlie Easley, who was 46 of 91. He shot 50.5% from 3. There's guys that can't shoot 50.5% at the free throw line. Right. This guy's doing it from 3-point range on contested shots.
Right.
If Providence can't stop that, they're in trouble.
For sure. Now, you were saying, of course, they're playing in Portland, right? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
And, that's an NBA arena that they're playing in. The good news is that it's not a dome. And the reason I say that is, for some reason, 3-point shooters, when they don't have that perspective of the, where the basket is, and you kind of lose that when your background is the dome, it makes it difficult. And so, absolutely, this is a game where if they can do it, this would be the opportunity for them to pull an upset. And frankly, I'm not so sure it would be an upset, to be honest.
That's seeding wise, it would be. Otherwise, probably not.
I don't know that that they're that much behind. But anyway, all right. So let's get to the ice, my friend, and see what's going on tonight. Ice wise, the Lightning. Whoops. Okay. Or the Flames, depending upon which one you want.
No, we can do the Lightning first.
The Lightning and the Kraken.
Yep, this game coming to you from the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. The Lightning 38-15-6, 19-10-2 on the road. The Kraken bad, and we'll just leave it at that. It's going to be Andrei Vasilevsky, 31-11-4, 240 goals against, 918 save percentage, and 2 shutouts for the Lightning. Philippe Grubauer continues to get starts for reasons unknown to anyone else, because I'd rather see Chris Dredger if I was a Kraken fan. Grubauer 13-25-5 with a 321 goals against and an 888 save percentage. That's not going to get it done. Tampa Bay 7th in the league in goals for, 3.36 a night, 12th in goals against at 2.83. The Kraken, well, the numbers speak for themselves. 3rd worst in the league in goals for, 4th worst in the league in goals against. Tampa Bay 79-21 in their last 100 after scoring 2 goals or less. They're coming off a 2-1 win over Vancouver over the weekend. 50-15 in their last 65 against teams with a losing record. 43-13 in their last 56 on Wednesday. Seattle 0-6 in their last 6 after a win. 0-6 in their last 6 with at least 3 days of rest. And 0-4 in their last 4 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. You have to think Tampa Bay is going to light them up. The first meeting came back on November 26th at the Amalie Arena when Tampa Bay earned a 3-0 victory. So the Kraken's still looking for the first goal in franchise history against the Lightning. They might get it, but they're not going to get very many. And Tampa Bay wins this one going away as they keep pace with the Panthers in a crowded Atlantic Division race.
Yeah, I mean, the Lightning are in a battle within their own state. I mean, at this point, Florida's played well. You can't, from their standpoint, you can't afford to have a letdown. And Vasilevsky, he's been at least the last 3 years right there with the Vezina trophy for the best goalkeeper in the business. And there's no reason to think that tonight he's not going to, you know, step up because, again, these are the kind of games, if you're going to be a defending Stanley Cup champion, you have to win. And Seattle is a expansion team. You can't let up against them. You have to put the pedal down, and we'll see how that happens. But it's hard to go against the Lightning, for sure. And as we said before, there's nobody who is better at giving folks hope than Philip Grubauer, the opposing team hope.
And it's like Sly said, it just reminds you what a good defense can do for you. He was decent in Colorado, right. And now he's got nothing in front of him outside basically Mark Giordano, who's probably going to be traded.
Right, because he played well in Washington as well. So there's that. All right, so we've kind of had an idea what's the next game, but let's just take it on anyway. Here we go.
Calgary, right, we're talking about teams that are good and teams that aren't. We got the Devils and the Flames. The Flames obviously leading the Pacific Division. They are 36, 16, and 7. They're 18, 5, and 5 at home. Devils 22, 33, and 5 at 8, 19, and 2 on the road. They're coming off a 6-3 loss last night to Vancouver. So Bruce Boudreau's boys picking up the win. Much to the chagrin of Sly because, like you said, Winnipeg won, but so did Nashville and the Canucks. So they didn't gain any ground in the playoff chase. It's going to be John Gillies, 3-9-1 with an ugly 3.70 goals against and an 885 save percentage. Going to start for New Jersey. Meanwhile, Jacob Markstrom, 28-11-6 with a 207 goals against, a 928 save percentage, and 9 shutouts. Now, here's an interesting stat for you about Markstrom, Jim. He's got 9 shutouts in his first 11 years in the league. He had a total combined number of 8.
Well, that goes to prove, Sly's point. If you have a good defense back there with you, it makes you a better goalkeeper.
That's true. The Devils 17th in goals for at 3 per game. They're 26th in goals against at 3.5. Meanwhile, Calgary 6th in goals for at 3.42. And back to that point, 2nd in goals against at 2.42 goals a game. New Jersey 17-46 in their last 63 as an underdog. They're 5-16 in the second game of their last 21 back-to-back situations. They're 1-7 in the last 8 when it comes to 3 games and the third game of a 3-game and 4-night set. Calgary 5-0 in their last 5 on Wednesday, 14-2 in their last 16 at home, 12-2 in their last 14 as a home favorite. The Devils 3-14 in the last 17 meetings between these teams, and they've lost 8 of the last 9 meetings in Cowtown. Look for the Flames to down the Devils in the Saddle Dome to get another victory.
That's also a tough place to play, the Saddle Dome. Calgary has some rabid fans, and they certainly make it tough. So, and the Flames are playing good hockey. So, why wouldn't you want to get on that bandwagon? Now, I know we're getting ready to go to the NBA, but here's the second of our 2 big promotions from BetMGM. And this one has to do with the NBA. It's a good one. Now, use your BetMGM app, then place a bet of at least $10 on any NBA game, and you get $200 if either team hits a 3-pointer. Click on the BetMGM link below to play. Remember, you must be 21 years of age to play. Bet responsibly. So that's a great opportunity. We told you about the other one before, and by all means, take advantage of it. All the information on both promotions with BetMGM, our friends, are in the show box below. Okay, very cool. So now we go to the association and see what's going on the hardwood tonight, Christopher.
Well, before we do that, let's just go back through some of the comments that we missed earlier. Brody said he hit a 5-7 teamer with our help and a couple of adjustments yesterday. He missed a 10 teamer because Santa Clara let us down. Santa Clara let everybody down. I think they forgot that they had to bring offense with them to the Palouse. I was very disappointed with Herb Sendek's team's performance. He's gonna get a nasty letter. He's not gonna get more fruit baskets from us. The way that team played yesterday.
Congratulations, Brody, on hitting a 5 and a 7. That's fantastic work, man.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. It's always good when you have hit winners like that. Michael asking about Virginia, Mississippi State, and Towson, Wake Forest going over the number. I like Virginia. I've actually got them further down in the shot in the dark segment. I just think playing at home is going to be a bit too much for a Mississippi State team that kind of fell apart down the stretch. And Tony Bennett, he's got to win something, or else the Virginia fan base will go back to pointing out how he lost to UMBC as a 1 seed in the tournament a couple of years ago. As far as Towson and Wake going over the number, I could see that happening. You have to figure Wake Forest, they're a good offensive team. Steve Forbes has done a good job with that, given the fact that he basically inherited a team of nothing when he took it over. And Towson, they were another team that nobody really talks about because they play in a smaller conference. Wake Forest was 15th in the country in scoring at 79.5 points a game. They're 2/10 in scoring defense at 70.2. So you have to think their average total this season was 149.7. Towson, they come in, Pat Scarry's team 121st in scoring offense at 73.2. They played good defense, but playing in the CAA and playing a team from the ACC, same letters, different conference altogether. Yeah. But I think that
Towson usually doesn't beat themselves, which is, that was the big thing that I've seen with Towson this year is, they can lose, but they're losing not because they aren't playing decent basketball.
Right, so and Towson's good on the offensive glass too, and that's something that Wake Forest is going to have to stop. But second chance points are the bane of any unders existence, but it's always beneficial for the overs.
Absolutely.
And you look at some of the numbers that Towson put up down the stretch. They hung 80 on Charleston, they hung 84 and 95 in back-to-back games against James Madison, 79 against UNC Wilmington, 86 against Elon. So the power is there for Scary's team to put up points. And like we said, Wake Forest, not exactly a powerhouse defensive squad when you get right down to it. Forbes' team, they gave up 76 to Miami, 76 to Duke. They gave up 80 to Clemson. They gave up 77 to Louisville, 76 to NC State. They gave 82 to Boston College. They kind of tapered off defensively down the stretch, and they'll get their points. So I think going over that mark is probably a pretty good bet. As for BYU, Long Beach State, under 152, I'm sticking with it. I just don't think that Long Beach State is going to drag enough points out going on the road into Provo to face the Cougars there. And BYU, they pride themselves on playing decent defense. They're not going to score a truckload of points and push this one over.
Tempo teams, are they?
Well, BYU is 127th. Long Beach State is 27th. They like to run, but they don't shoot all that well.
Right.
So they get points, but they get points because of the tempo. They don't get points because they can actually shoot the ball worth a damn.
It's called volume. You shoot a lot of shots.
Yeah, exactly. As David Spade would say on the old Hollywood Minute on Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live in the 90s, it's called volume. Look into it.
Right. It's all about volume.
Just taking a look
here.
Any
more quick questions there?
Thomas said St. Louis over Northern Iowa. I actually wrote that game for Winners and Whiners, and I agree. The Panthers, they looked completely dysfunctional when they lost to Loyola of Chicago in the MVC tournament, scoring 43 points over the weekend. You have to wonder how motivated they are. They're also a one-dimensional team. They go through A.G. Green, and that's it. Mm-hmm. He was 4 of 20 against the Ramblers, and the Billikens can play some pretty good defense. I look for the Billikens, especially playing at the Heifetz Arena, to come up with a win. Michael said San Francisco, Murray State could be the best first-round game. Not going to argue with that.
I wouldn't argue that point. I wouldn't argue. Those are two teams that you and I were big fans of during the course of the season.
I think the Dons are I think the Dons are undervalued as a 10 seed. I think Murray State was probably undervalued as a 7 seed.
Mhm.
I know the Ohio Valley, yeah, it's not the Big Ten or the ACC, but it's tough to go 18-0 in a conference. I don't care what conference you're in.
Mhm.
Um,
And
and I
they
think
they went they did well in a conference that had the number one team in the country and the overall number one seed in the country in Gonzaga, and they had St. Mary's. So, not for nothing.
and
That's not a bad.
Santa Clara was in there too.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, man.
And Matthew said he hit a 6-teamer yesterday. He had all 3 hockey overtime games. The Rangers, the Capitals, and the Panthers. And don't forget, Boston went to overtime too before
That's
they
true.
beat Chicago because
Free
Marc-Andre
hockey,
Fleury
folks.
stood on his head.
Yeah.
So good for you there, Matthew.
Yeah. Always nice to see people win.
The Kent State money line. Bryce, has that shifted again? Last I saw, Southern Utah was a 1.5 point underdog as far as the line went.
Check BetMGM. I'm sure they have it.
That's true. I just hadn't looked at any of the lines since this morning. I know the one thing I have to wonder about Kent State is Kent State going to be motivated for this game after basically getting jobbed out of going to March Madness, because you have to think they should have been. It's going to be at Southern Utah, so it's going to be in Cedar City, I think is.
So you got to travel from basically Cleveland to Utah to play a game in altitude.
Yeah, in a game you don't even want to really be in, I don't think, because let's face it, Kent State got jobbed. Yeah, Kent State got jobbed. They should have been. Mm-hmm. They should have had their, getting that suspension handed down at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday for a Snapchat video that cost you your second leading scorer for the first half of that game, along with 3 other guys. It made no sense whatsoever. Since when does a conference intervene because somebody dropped a bunch of obscenities about another school in a Snapchat video? Who cares?
If that were the case, there'd be a lot of coaches that'd be in trouble.
Exactly. So, it's the first time I had ever seen something like that happen. It's ridiculous. Steen and Reichel, and we all talked about it the other day. It made no sense when it happened. It makes no sense now. I just have to wonder, will Kent State be motivated here? Because I sure as hell wouldn't be. You got passed over, so you lost March Madness. You got passed over for the NIT, so you end up in the basketball classic. And the reason why you're on the road probably is the same reason for the NIT. They want to put teams that are going to put, to quote Tony Schiavone, butts in the seats.
Right.
And I don't think people are going to turn out to watch Kent State play in some third-rate tournament when they were expecting to go to March Madness. Speaking of the basketball classic, the Merrimack UMBC game that was scheduled to go tonight has been canceled. We'll see if there's any reason
lack of interest or what.
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. I wonder if it's going to be another travel thing, because it just went up that it was canceled moments ago on off the boards.
By the way, just got a press release from CBS that they're adding Bob Huggins to their staff of coaches to break things down during March Madness. So Huggy is going to be on CBS and TNT with their coverage, as well as TBS and all the other Turner networks that will be covering the games starting tomorrow. And of course, tonight they're on True TV, which is yet another in the long line of Turner family of networks. So, meanwhile, any update on why they're canceling that game?
I don't know. I'm looking, but I'm not getting anything coming up about it yet. And I'm trying to see if.
Well, where were they supposed to play?
It was supposed to be at UMBC.
Okay, well, I can tell you that the weather here on the East
there
Coast
we go. UMBC withdrew.
Oh. Okay.
It says UMBC announced it's bowing out of the basketball classic. They gathered Tuesday for the first time since returning from the America East title game against Vermont when they were obliterated. and determined they were not healthy enough to play Wednesday's game. They said, "We want to sincerely apologize to our fans, the tournament organizers who have worked so hard to put this event together, and to the Merrimack men's basketball program for this outcome. We're disappointed that our season cannot continue, but we'll get to work immediately to prepare for another successful year in 2022-23.
Okay.
So there you go. Anybody that was excited about seeing Merrimack play UMBC, you're out of luck.
So Merrimack hopefully didn't travel to Baltimore to turn around and go home. So
yeah, the funny thing was Merrimack was 15-16 and got into this tournament. Just shows you that there's a lack of teams that were interested in playing in tournaments. I mean, we looked at there was another team yesterday. I can't remember.
South Florida didn't get a call.
Maybe they can play Merrimack in the first round. Who knows?
Yeah, why not?
I saw a team yesterday that I think we had 11 wins or something like that got into this tournament. They might be playing tomorrow.
This is a made-for-TV tournament anyway, so there you go.
But I mean, they were like 11-15, and they got into it. I'm like, what kind of tournament is this? I guess and it makes me feel bad for teams like our buddy Pete Medhurst and Navy because they weren't going to pay to get into a tournament.
No.
But you're going to see these doormat teams that don't belong. Why don't we just get Mississippi Valley State in here? They want to come. Why don't we get IUPUI in this tournament?
Hey, I was going to mention this yesterday. IUPUI's women's team is in the NCAA tournament. They're quite good.
Are they going to get obliterated too?
I don't know. I mean, the IUPUI team was rated 7th in their own region. Not in the tournament, but in their respective region, in the Midwest region. So good on IUPUI's women's team for taking up for the men's team that unfortunately had to recruit band members to get enough people to play on that team. So anyway, let's go to the Yeah, exactly. Let's go to the NBA and on the hard court there. The Wolves.
Well, and as our buddy Tim Earl says, yep, he's told you over in the comments, and he told you we popped on for a couple minutes. It's a full-time job fading the Lakers, just like it's a full-time job fading Steve Alford. And if you've watched the Lakers lately, I feel sorry for you. We talked about it yesterday when they played the Raptors Monday night. I turned it on at one point. I think it was like 27-6 or something like that. It was 33-12 after the first quarter, and the Lakers were 3 of 25 from the field. Everybody was talking about, hey, they only lost by 11. So what? The game was over after one quarter. Now they get to go on the road. They get to face Minnesota. The Timberwolves coming off that 149-139 track meet over the Spurs, where Karl Anthony Towns had 60 points in 36 minutes. And how about that? We saw 60-point games on back-to-back nights because Kyrie Irving went for 60 last night against the Magic. And Brody brings up a valid point when we were talking about bad teams being in the tournament when we said IUPI. He said, don't forget Chicago State. But, hey, the Cougars did beat the Jaguars in that rock fight that we talked about earlier this season. So there was that. But, yeah, the Lakers, let's face it, the Lakers are bad. They're 27th in scoring defense at 113.6. They're 19th in field goal percentage defense. They're middle of the road in three-point defense. They're a mediocre team offensively. They average 111. They shoot 46.5%. I don't know if that 46.5% counts all the air balls or bricks that Westbrook has been throwing up. Because let's face it, whoever thought that bringing in Russell Westbrook to play on a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis thought that was a good idea should be fired because, let's be honest.
Wasn't a good idea.
Let's be honest, that was never going to work. And it hasn't. And that's why they're, a zillion games under 500. They're barely hanging on to a play-in spot, despite the fact that the West has the Thunder and the Rockets at the bottom of the conference. LeBron, of course, questionable again. But he'll probably play.
Yeah. I was just going to say LeBron. LeBron has really not hidden in any way, shape, or form his disdain for the front office and specifically the head coach of the Lakers. So my guess is that when this season is over, that we're going to see another head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, despite the fact that it's not his fault that they're playing badly.
as like Thomas said, the Lakers have won 2 games since the All-Star break. They're 2-8. The 2 games they won, LeBron had to go for 50.
Right.
So it's either LeBron scores 50 or the Lakers lose. And, he could potentially score 50 because Minnesota's not great defensively. But can they stop Karl Anthony Towns? And the answer to me is no, because who are you going to stop him with? Dwight Howard? No.
Not LeBron.
Who else do they have? Yeah, not LeBron because Towns is bigger than he is. So who else do they have that they can possibly match up on Towns? Let's take a look at
Westbrook.
this great road. Yeah, Westbrook. You just walk past him. Westbrook doesn't play defense half the time anyway. But I mean, just let's look at. I mean, they got rid of DeAndre Jordan. I don't think Jordan would have stopped him either.
No.
But just looking at the rest of their rotation, they've got. I mean, you got to put Carmelo Anthony on them. Probably not. Trevor Ariza,
maybe
no.
in his prime.
Yeah, but not now.
No.
They don't have the Lakers don't have anybody bigger than 6'10", and Karl Anthony Towns will just shoot over you.
But
so it's gonna be interesting how they're going to try to match up on him.
But how many play? I mean, let's just forget the Lakers for a moment. How many teams in the league can stop Towns? I mean, that's I get what I'm saying is he's an elite player. You don't even have a guy, as you said, over 6'10". How are you going to stop this guy? You're not going to stop this guy.
Right, and that's going to be their big issue. As to who can stop him, I would say probably a guy like Jokic, because obviously
fair enough.
Jokic is very versatile. Joel Embiid.
Yeah. But you're talking about a handful of guys.
Right, yeah. It's a small thing. You're not going to get they don't grow on trees like 3-and-D guys, for sure.
Right.
But it's just bad news for the Lakers.
It doesn't take long to call roll is all I'm saying in the people that can play.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So you're right. Fade the Lakers. Let's go. Next one up.
And speaking of Nikola Jokic, we'll talk about the Nuggets as they come to the nation's capital to take on the Wizards.
To take out the
Tricky Wizards. Talking to you here as the Nuggets 41-28. They're 21-15 on the road. And Trump, the Wizards 29-38. And they're just a 500 team at the Capital One Arena this season.
Yeah.
The Nuggets 12th in scoring offense at 111.1. They're third in field goal percentage at 47.7. They're middle of the road in 3-point shooting. But when you've got Jokic who can do everything, you don't really need to shoot all that well from the perimeter or all that often. The Wiz 18th in scoring defense, 17th in field goal percentage defense.
So a lot of 20s there for the Wizards.
Yeah, 21st in scoring offense. They shoot the ball well when they're not turning it over.
Right.
Their 7th field goal percentage. They're 25th in 3-point shooting at 34%. The Nuggets 12th in scoring defense, 21st in field goal percentage defense, 6th in 3-point defense. The Nuggets 7-1 in their last 8 on the road. The Wiz 1-6 in their last 7 as a home underdog. 0-3-1 in their last 4 at home against teams with a winning road record. Denver, you're used to seeing them play well at altitude, but they've played decently on the road. And this is another case of how are the Wizards going to contain Nikola Jokic? And it's going to be interesting to figure that out because you look at their injury report, just checking to see if there's anybody that I'm missing. Obviously, we know Bradley Beal's not going to play. Vernon Carey is down in the G League. Okay, so it's just Beal on the injury report. Aaron Gordon questionable for the Nuggets. JaMychal Green is probable. Zeke Naji also questionable with a sore knee. He's not really a big factor. The big thing is if Gordon plays, they'll be fine. Even without him, they should be okay. I mean, we talked about yesterday Memphis being without Morant would be fine anyway, and they blew out Indiana by, 33 points.
Mm-hmm.
And Thomas brings up a point. Rudy Gobert can stop Karl Anthony Towns. The one thing that is tough for Gobert sometimes, though, is switching out on the perimeter because, he's a good rim protector. Sometimes he's not necessarily all that great on the outside. He's gotten better on it. I mean, I'm not going to argue with a guy who's won the Defensive Player of the Year 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's a guy that could match up with Towns as well. But like Jim said, it's a short list. It's not going to be like you're reading off something that's 15 pages long, because it's just not the case. There's probably maybe 5, maybe 6 guys that can match up with him effectively, I would say, in the league.
Yeah, that's about right. Before we get going here on some other stuff, let's remind people of a couple things. One, that our expert team of handicappers, or Winners and Whiners, are offering a sports betting guide for the NCAA Tournament, featuring insightful articles, some, of course, written by my partner in crime right over there, helping you avoid the traps and all the things that can happen. We find value plays, and most importantly, make the right bets. Sign up today, and it's going to be right in your email box as soon as possible. Remember,
I think it's already out because I have a copy of it. So
right, no, it's out. What I'm saying is, if you sign up, it will get in your email box as soon as you sign up. So
gotcha.
There you go. I
just wanted to make sure that I just didn't get it ahead of time.
No, we're all. I got mine too, so it's there.
Okay.
But wait, there's more. We have a bracket contest now. There's up $2,000 is out there. $1,000 to the winner. You still have time. So in the show box below, where we've got all the BetMGM stuff and all the cool stuff having to do with the tournament, it's in the inbox. In the show box. It'll get to your inbox after you sign up for it. Speaking of signing up for stuff, sign up for Chris's stuff, because we have some really cool stuff with Chris. You can get a lot of good stuff from Chris and his parlays. So if you want Chris's parlays, and I know a lot of you do, check out the show box below. There's all the information about getting Chris's parlays sent directly to your email box. All you have to do is fill out the information in the show box below. There's a link to that too. Okay, so all of that's there. There's also promotions on our Max Wagers Network, which Sean starts off at noon, Allie's up at 1, and there's Chris at 2, along with us. And then there's Scott and Scott. I almost said Mike and Mike. Scott and Scott comes up at 3 o'clock, and then Lenny and the boys round out the day. So there's 6 hours of content right here on the Max Wagers Network. So at this point, as I take a deep breath to get some more air after reading through all that, let's move
Good grief,
forward.
Joe Flacco signed with the Jets.
Again?
Yep.
Wasn't he there once?
Yeah. He signed a 1-year deal for $3.5 million. A, why would Joe Flacco go to the Jets? B, why would the Jets pay him $3.5 million?
No idea.
He's worth about a nickel.
I mean, look, Joe cashed in on about $80 million of a $100 million deal that he had. He's picked up a few extra mil on the way out there. Would you not just say, all right, I'm in that $80 to $90 million category. Do I really want to play anymore? I could sit home, watch TV, enjoy my life, go watch the Delaware basketball team play, and just hang out. I mean, he lives in South Jersey anyway. I don't know. Some guys just can't quit. And I guess.
And Chandler Jones is going to sign with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Ooh, okay. I can tell you this
Who then traded Yannick Ngakoue to the Colts.
Baseball-wise, I expect Freddie Freeman to be a Dodger by the time we do this show tomorrow. So there you go. That's my little tidbit here. Freddie Freeman will be a
Jim,
Dodger.
we have someone asking about the contest. What password do you use to enter it? Do you know about that? Because I haven't done the done anything with the contest.
With the contest? No, you don't have to. There's no password. You just click on it and you enter. It should it should be. Hang on a second. I'll do it myself and see. And
James, I know that Flacco spent a lot of years in the league, but that doesn't mean that the Jets need to pay $3.5 million for a backup quarterback who conceivably might not beat out Mike White and then end up getting cut. Let's be honest. 3.5 is pretty steep for a guy who might not play. And the coaching change with Florida Gulf Coast, I don't know if that'll affect them too much. Detroit Mercy, I know you weren't a fan of them earlier this year when they were on the road. The Titans, of course, led by Antoine Davis. They're still 5-14 on the road, and Florida Gulf Coast 15-3 at home. I don't think the coaching change will be too much of an issue because I think it's something that they knew was coming for a while. I'd probably still lean towards the Eagles. The Titans they needed more secondary scoring, and they never found it, and that's a big issue for them. Meanwhile, Jim is still.
I don't see any. I don't see anything that any password that you need to get the contest. But if we do, I'll tell you what. I will.
They're saying is WXM the password. They don't have a Yahoo account. I didn't know it was on Yahoo, but then again, I haven't. Like I said, I haven't seen it.
Here, I'll tell you what. We'll if you check back later, I'll put it in the comments, and that way you can come back and check it out. Okay, fair enough. I will find out how it works and get back to you on that because I was just there and it didn't seem to be a problem for me, but we'll see. There must be something that your browser or something isn't letting you do it. That happens sometimes. Don't worry about it. We'll leave me a note.
Yeah, I know sometimes people use Chrome instead of Firefox.
Right, and there's craziness that abides. So I'll tell you what.
Brody says MWN is the password.
It probably is because we are the Max Wagers Network. That would do it. So Brody, thank you for the scoop, buddy. I'll come back and put it in the comments. So if there's anything different, I think Brody's right. I think it is MWN. So there's that. So by all means, check it out and come back later, and I will absolutely have it for you. Let's go for 2 for the money, big guy, and see what we got.
All right, we got Wright State over Bryant. I'm going to stick with him. I know people, I think it was James, was talking about how Bryant is more battle-tested outside the conference, but you have to remember that while they did play Houston and Cincinnati and Clemson, Wright State also played some bigger teams outside of the conference as well. They played Purdue. Mm-hmm. They played Cleveland State. They played Akron. They beat NC State and Raleigh. So that's not really something that's as much of a factor as one might think. I'm going to lean towards Wright State, like I said, especially with their campus being 10 minutes. Jim says 15 with traffic away from the Dayton Arena. You're going to have a lot of fans there from Wright State, and that might turn the tide because having a home crowd behind you is always a plus, especially when it comes to games like this. And when you don't have to travel, it makes it even easier. I like the Bucks over the Kings. I know Sacramento beat Chicago the other night, but I don't expect them to put together back-to-back performances. I like the way the Bucks played. They beat Utah the other night. They played some good basketball. Then we've got the Nuggets over the Wiz. We talked about that already. Denver, a good basketball team. And I'm going to go with the Flames over the Devils, like we said. New Jersey playing the second game of back-to-back. They got beat up by Vancouver last night. Markstrom has a massive edge in goal over John Gillies. So I'm going to ride with Calgary at home over a tired New Jersey squad who has not had a ton of success out west.
No, it's been tough for them in New Jersey, let alone going west. All right, so let's go from 2 for the money, 4 for the show. Yeah,
Michael asked about Virginia earlier. I have them right here. I look for Virginia to beat Mississippi State. I just don't have a ton of faith in the Bulldogs after the way they played down the stretch. Sure, they beat South Carolina, but yeah, it's in Charlottesville.
Okay.
Sure, they beat South Carolina, but you know who else beat South Carolina? Pretty much everybody.
Right.
And that's why Frank Martin got fired. Let's face it, They went 4-4 in their last 8, but their three of their 4 wins were 2 over Missouri. Then they beat Vanderbilt at home, and they beat South Carolina in the SEC tournament. They also lost in Columbia to South Carolina, lost to Auburn, lost to Texas A&M, and lost to Tennessee in that stretch. I don't think they're going to go to Charlottesville. Everybody knows how Tony Bennett's team will bleed the clock and bleed everything else and make life absolutely miserable for you on the offensive end of the floor. I like Virginia over Mississippi State. Ryan was just asking about the 76ers. I like them over Cleveland. Cleveland's still dealing with a lot of injuries. Jared Allen missing with a broken finger. Philadelphia is healthy. They sure as heck better play better than we saw them play against Orlando and Brooklyn and against Denver when they faded down the stretch in the second half the other night. But I think, with a day off, they can regroup and get back in the win column over the Cavs. We talked about Tampa Bay over the Kraken. No reason to trust Seattle at this point. Be interested to see who they unload before the deadline. And like Tim Earl says, fade the Lakers or the Fakers.
They ought to make them. They ought to make them wear generic jerseys because that's an embarrassment to the Laker franchise.
Yeah, Kurt Rambis is disappointed as well.
He's broken his glasses again.
Yeah, he needs to get some more tape.
Right, he's got to tape his glasses again.
And as for Bill's asking about the total for the Wright State game, yeah, I think it's a little high. I think that if you look, Wright State is a decent defensive team. Bryant probably isn't going to get to run as much as they would like to. I mean, Bryant was 7th in the country in tempo. Wright State is 98th. But if you look in the last few games for Wright State, none of their last – oh, geez. In fact, Wright State has not gotten to 155 points in a game total since beating UIC back on January 22nd.
Oof.
So their last 15 have come under this number. And there was only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and those were all early in the season. Yeah, so it's been since January 22nd when you've seen a number that high for Wright State. Bryant, even in their last few, they had 148 against the Wagner win at the end of the regular season, 132 against Central Connecticut, 139 against Mount St. Mary's, 113 against Wagner in the NEC title game. And even St. Francis, they only got to 155. So I think 155 is probably a little high. I would lean towards it staying under.
You're probably right. That's for sure. All right. This is the one where everybody has a lot of fun, and that's our menu. So let's see what we got on the menu today.
All right.
By the way, not for nothing, just to give Chris a little ups here, we talked about, signing up for his parlays. Last week, you swept it, buddy.
Yep. We hit all 10 last Wednesday, so a week ago today. We had 9 on Monday. The only one that missed was Jokic not going over 46.5 points, rebounds, and assists. But I think that one will be interesting. But I like Iona here. When you look at the coaching matchup, it's Rick Pitino versus Al Pinkins. Now, I know you're wondering, who in the blue hell is Al Pinkins? Well,
he's the interim coach of the Florida Gators.
Yeah, he's taking over because Mike White left. In a close game, I don't trust Al Pinkins when it comes to dealing with Rick Pitino. So I'm going to go with Pitino.
And they're playing this at the O Center down in the Gazer?
That is correct. Mm-hmm. But I'll take 6.5 or 7 points because depending on the books, I've seen a couple of books where it's gone up as high as 8. I don't think Florida's that good. Let's be honest.
Well, they're short, that's for sure. They're not deep. That's another problem. And, you'd mentioned something that's very important, and that is anyone inspired? And I don't see them filling the building, number one, for this game. And I just don't see that the Gators are going to be inspired to play, Iona. Meanwhile, Pitino is probably ticked off that they didn't make it to the NCAA tournament, because I think he felt that was something that could have happened. And I said I thought he'd get it by name recognition alone. So his team is definitely a team who was certainly in my mind worthy of making it to the tournament. So that's this is their opportunity to prove everybody wrong. Plus, how about this? If Iona could get their way to the Final Four, they'd be playing in the Garden in New York. So
that's true. So it'd be their backyard practically.
Yeah. So there's every reason for Iona to be up and psyched to play, and every reason for the Gators to be looking at exams for the next couple of months. Meanwhile, the Penguins.
Yeah, I think Youngstown State will beat Morgan State. Morgan State's another one of those teams that got here because I guess they paid to be here because they were 13-14 on the season. Youngstown State wasn't great. They were 18-14, but at least they had a winning record. I look for them to prevail at home here. Morgan State was just 3-9 on the road. Doesn't look like a pretty record. BYU over Long Beach State. Like we talked about, Long Beach State just doesn't have the momentum at this point. They lost to Cal State Fullerton in the Big West title game. But going to Provo and facing a team like BYU is a whole different ball of wax than playing teams like Hawaii, Fullerton, Northridge, and the rest of those teams. I just think they're going to be overmatched here.
Well, BYU's on their way out of that conference.
Right, because they'll be going. What is the Big 12?
Yeah, they're going to the Big 12.
Is that where they're going?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least they'll have 11 teams then.
Right.
Southern Utah, I'm going to go with them over Kent State just because, like I said, I don't know if Kent State wants to be here. I mean, I know Bryce thinks they'll play with a chip on their shoulder, but the fact remains that I'm just worried about what their motivation is after missing out on the tournament.
Well, you also get points.
The fact, right, and you're also dealing with, like you said, with the altitude. I'm a little worried about that as well. So I'm going to take Southern Utah. The Thunderbirds can pile up points. The one thing you got to watch out are Tevian Jones, their leading scorer, done for the year with a wrist injury, but they've still got three other guys that average in double figures, and they're a dangerous team. I'm going to go with the Hawks, -1 over the Hornets. This line moved. Originally, Charlotte was favored by, I think, 2 or 2.5, and now it switched the other way. Charlotte is a team that does not know what defense is. They're the Eastern Conference version of the Lakers. Atlanta should be able to pile up points, get the win. Right. I'm going to go with Toronto over the Clippers. Hey, Toronto's on the road. They beat Phoenix over the weekend. They beat the Lakers the other day. They didn't have to go anywhere for this one. So, hey, they're in the same building. Why not?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's be honest. I don't care who the New York Knicks are playing. They could be playing the YMCA of Greater Brooklyn. They shouldn't be favored by 12 points over anybody. Portland has come back after getting beat by at least 30 points in 5 out of 6 with back-to-back covers. I'll take 12 points in the Trailblazers.
To your point, the YMCA or the Boys Club of Brooklyn probably would be north of 12 points against the against the Knicks.
Probably true.
There's some guys that can ball over there in Brooklyn. So,
but yeah, I'm gonna take Portland. Yeah, I look for that game to stay under 6. I know that Ottawa's been in some high-scoring games of late, but when they met last time, it was a 2-1 game. I don't think it'll be quite that low. I think it'll probably be 3-2 or something like that. But it's still going to end up under the mark. Could be 4-2. But I don't think they're going to get to 7. Tampa Bay and Seattle actually under 6. Like I said, the first meeting only ended up 3-0. Seattle doesn't score a whole lot. Tampa Bay doesn't give up a whole lot, and they don't need to score a whole lot to beat Seattle. And Minnesota -110 over the Bruins. The Bruins were stonewalled yesterday by Marc-Andre Fleury before escaping in overtime 2-1. They're playing the second game of back-to-back here. Minnesota's had a couple days off. Beat Jeremy Swayman for the Bruins, Cam Talbot for the Wild. And Bill, we talked a little bit about Notre Dame Rutgers. I'm going to give Notre Dame a slight edge there just because of the fact that, they've got guys like Paul Atkinson, Blake Wesley. They have a good experienced team. And Rutgers is so inconsistent where they'll put together that stretch like where they beat Wisconsin and Michigan State and those guys and then turned around and barely beat Penn State. They beat Indiana on a buzzer beater. It's hard to put a ton of faith in a team that goes like this. S curves are great on an oscilloscope, but not necessarily when you're playing basketball. I'll give a slight lean to Notre Dame, but the one thing that concerns me about the Fighting Irish is the lack of depth. I mean, going 7 deep is a good way to get burned out, especially when you factor in whoever wins this is going to face Alabama, who will run you into the ground. That's Nate Oates' trademark. It was in Buffalo. It is here in Alabama. And that's going to be a big task for whoever comes out of this one.
Mike Bray has got some pretty extensive practice at coaching and tournament play. And, that's got to be a factor too. So,
And speaking of Delaware, that's where he started his coaching career, was in Delaware.
Right. Or heading over to the Irish. But let's talk a little bit real quick about our entire Max Wagers team. Midday Money with Sean Higgs starts at noon. Then comes Morning with our buddy Allie Burns. And Chris, you were on with Allie today. And you are
just briefly.
You're the reigning king of Allie's Great Chaos program. So there's that, which is fun. At 2:00, you got it. We're here. We're here every day at 2:00. We clock in. We're ready to go with Just Parlays. Then at 3:00, or a few minutes ago, Scott and Scott on WN2 went back to the window with Scott and Scott 3 to 4, and then Game Time Decisions with Nick, Tim, and Lenny coming at 5. So that's 6 hours of programming. Be sure
commercial free.
Commercial free. Well, not really, because BetMGM has been very good to us, as Chico Escuela would say. Been very, very good to us. Be sure, we talked about 3-4 things. BetMGM 2 promotions, the giveaway of the book and the contest, all that information, Chris's picks and parlays, all in the show box below, right down there. Also, smash that like button, hit the subscribe, and hit the bell so that you will not miss anything that goes on here with us. So, any final thoughts, Chris, before we bolt out of here and give way on a Wednesday to our buddy Scott and Scott?
Make sure you try to yell really loud in the chat box, because Rachel's probably hungover since he's in Vegas, and he said he was going mainly because it's St. Patrick's Day. So
you go.
I figure
Vegas
he'll probably be. Yeah, apparently, I'm guessing he'll be hungover for the next 3 days. So make sure you guys yell really loud in the chat box, and enjoy the first 4 games tonight. It should be a couple good matchups, and by the time we see you tomorrow, we'll be in the thick of March Madness.
And we'll have plenty of March Madness crazy for you tomorrow. Chris is going to start breaking all that down for you. So there'll be some good stuff to look forward to come tomorrow, as there always is right here with my buddy Chris King and what we try to do here on Just Parlay. So for the aforementioned Chris King, I'm Jim Williams, and we will see you tomorrow right here, nowhere else than on the Max Wagers Network. Take care, everybody.